What's going on YouTube? My name is Brandon, and today I'm going to take you through a tutorial, and it's a little bit long, but we're going to run through a lot of major topics within web development. And for this video specifically, we're going to use Python for the back end. The front ends, we're not doing any fancy front end frameworks. We're just going to do vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Also, in part of this tutorial, we're going to set up a MySQL database using MySQL Workbench, and I'll show you how to download that. And then once we set up our Flask application, which is the Python backend for the application, we're going to connect it to a MySQL Workbench or connect it to a MySQL database instance. And I thought it was time to create a video like this because I've been working at this for several years now, and I was recently thinking back to, man, what are the videos that I would have liked to see when, or videos that would have been available that really brings all these different pieces together. So that's what this is. That's the point of it. And it might be a little bit long because I hate when a video makes things seem easier than they actually are. So I want to try to show you some of the pitfalls and errors that you might run into. I just wanted to give you a feel for different, everything's not perfect, right? So I just want to give you a real feel for what it's like to create a project like this. So let's get started. Just want to give you an oversight of what we're going to do. We're going to set up a MySQL database locally. I already have Python installed and a virtual environment created. So if you don't have this, I'll create another video for that. But these are the steps that you would need to complete. We're going to get Flask up and running, install Flask login, make an HTML form and some backend endpoints. And I'll show you how this form that we're creating is part of a much larger application. So I'm currently, like I said, I'm working on a much larger application. It's called Toddly, and it helps parents find childcare centers in their area. So parents to just hit the start looking button. They can fill out their age and their location, and then find schools in their area. Something like this. We'll have a map over here. So we're not going to do all of this today, but I think it'd be good. I think a good place to start would be just creating this form right here with some inputs, and then the functionality of when you click this button to actually submit the form and have the application do something with that information. So first, let's start off by setting up MySQL Workbench. If you don't have it already, you can just Google MySQL Workbench, go to download, and I have a Windows. You would just choose whatever operating system that you have and download it. And once that's all complete, you should have a user interface, something like this. These are all the databases that I've set up for various projects that I've done. What you want to do is create a new connection. So we're going to create a new a local database that's using MySQL. So let's call this connection. Let's call it my new project, and just keep the host name the same. Username will be root, and we should just be able to test connection, and that should work out fine. And then when you click OK, it should appear right here. And then this is going to be your new database connection. And let's see, where is it? Oops. Okay, so up here at the top, you can see my new project. That's the new instance that we've created. To create a new database within this connection, you just use the command create database, and we'll call it my new DB. And if you hit the lightning bolt, it'll run. Should appear over here. Here it is, my new DB. So this is the database. This is the connection. I'll have to double check on that, exactly what these are called. But yeah, you've got a MySQL connection. When you go into it, you have these databases. And this is the one I just created with that command earlier. And in here, you can create tables. But we can also do this within Flask. So this is good enough for now. We've created the database. So to get started, I'm going to go. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go to my File Explorer, and I'm going to create a new project folder, and I'm just going to call it My Test Project. Okay, now that I'm out of there, I'll go back to VS Code, go to File, Open, Folder, Projects. Go ahead and find that folder. So My Test Project, that's it right there. And then this is where I'm going to store all my code. And I can create a main.py file. Actually, I'm going to call it app.py. App.py, and we're also going to create a folder called templates, folder called static. In the static folder, create a folder called CSS, create another folder called JavaScript. Okay. Now in the app.py file, add your first line is going to be from Flask import Flask, and then we may or may not use these, but they're common libraries to also include. So I'll just include request and JSONify. App equals Flask name. Create this introductory hello endpoint just to get things rolling here. And we'll set debug equal to true. Okay. Now let's see. Now when we, in theory, if we run this and go to this endpoint, it should return this JSON message. Is there something I'm missing? I don't know. So in VS Code, you can use, you may or may not know this, if you do Control Shift and then the back tick, that pulls up your terminal. And let's see what happens if I go Python app.py and try to run this thing. Oh, okay, it's running. I can't believe it. Now, if you didn't have Flask installed, you'll need to install Flask and create a virtual environment, and you'd want to install in that virtual environment. But for now, this is just fine for us. So if I go to this URL, we're going to see that we get a 404 message because it's not found, and that's because we don't have there's nothing defined for the root URL, but we do have something defined for the hello endpoint. So if I go to the URL and type in hello, it should say the JSON message that we presented up here. Now, if we create another endpoint for the root and we say hello homepage, I can update that. And if I refresh the page, oops. Okay, so whenever you see this assertion error down here, view function mapping is overriding. It's because I didn't change the name of these this function here as part of the view function. So if I call this home and then save and then try to, I'll have to run it again. So Python app.py, running again. Okay, and then if I go back here, I see hello world. And if I go back to the root, hello homepage, we want to do something with these. We want to create a template. So now that we've got our Flask application running, we want to connect it to our database. So let's, in the root of our project, where app.py is, we're also going to place, hold on. I think I goofed. Okay. In the root of our project, let's make a folder called project, and in project, move your static folder and your templates. So our directory is going to look like my test project, containing this project folder containing the app.py file. Okay, and then now, while we're here, also add a .getignore. We won't use this now, but just for the future, we'll want it. A .env for environment variables that you don't want other people to know about. What else? We could add a requirements.txt file. We'll want that for later. We're not going to worry about that right now. And okay, and that's it for right now. And then in this project folder, add another file, and we're going to call it init.py. So but it's going to be in the syntax is going to be underscore init underscore .py, and this is going to contain all the configuration that we want for our web application. And that's it. Okay, cool. So in this init.py file, that's where we're gonna place the database connection information. So let's go with. And when I was just starting off, this was like very complicated to try to understand and find any documentation on. So this is the way that I've got things working, and until someone tells me a better way to do it, then this is the way that I'm sticking with. So okay, so within here we'll have our import statements at the top. So we'll say some from Flask, import Flask request JSONify, redirect URL for render template. We'll also import from Flask SQLAlchemy, import SQLAlchemy. Again, if any of these are throwing errors, you would just pip install them toward the bottom. So you just take this library, go to Google, and say, pip install SQLAlchemy, and you'll see right here you'll find the instructions to install it. So this is what you would have to type in to install it if it's not already installed for you. I just don't have to because I already have it installed globally. Okay. While we're here, let's install from Flask. From Flask. From Flask login, import. Right now we just need login manager and current user. What else? Import logging for logging statements, specifically for Python. And that's about it. So now that we got these import statements, again, if they're not installed, you should install them. You want to initialize your SQLAlchemy instance. So db equals SQLAlchemy. Also initialize the login manager. We're not going to do the whole login manager thing yet, but we will. So it's better to just import it right now. Create a function called create app. In here you'll have, and it's auto-populating because I'm using GitHub Copilot, but you're going to want app equals Flask name, app.config. So at this point, you're going to want to include the configuration variables for the database. So to do that, you say app.config, and the first one that we want to list is the host. So we'll just say app.config MySQL host equals localhost. How are we doing on time? Once we make this connection, I think I'll end the video. Okay, so app.config MySQL host is localhost. To get this information, you just need to go back to your MySQL Workbench instance and click home. Oh, sorry. Hit the wrench icon, and that'll pull up your MySQL connections. Click the latest one that you created, and you could just okay. So instead of localhost might work as well, but just use the host name that you have over here. So mine's 127.0.0.1. And then you're going to do the same thing for these other attributes. So we'll say app.config MySQL user, and our user, or my user, is root. Now, for the password, instead of putting the password in full text right here, we'll want to put it in our environment variable. So to do that, we go to our environment, our .env file, and we'll type out MySQL. Oops. Well, yeah, I'll do it like this. Okay, MySQL password equals your password, and this is fine. I'll just call it your password for now. Py, and now here I'm going to say os.getenv MySQL password, which is this. But I'm getting an error because I didn't import operating system. So let's go up here and say import operating system. And now app.config MySQL DB. It's not called Flask DB. It's called my new DB. So I'm going to say my new DB. Cool. That looks good. And what else? Now we say db.init app. And now we'll say with app.app.context db.create. Also, we're just creating all the tables that's in our application in this database over here. But before we create them, we need to create the tables. So let's say from .models import, let's just say import user. I'm just going to throw an error because .models doesn't exist. So let's create it. So in the same place that init.py exists, we're going to add a new file called models.py. This is where we're going to store the data, the tables that describe the structure of the data in our database. And the last line is just going to be return app. Cool. Okay, so from models, let's add some tables to our models Python file. So let's say from the current directory, import the DB instance from Flask login, import user mixin. And again, if you don't have Flask login, you're going to want to install that now. And again, you can just go to Google and look for pip install Flask login. It'll show you the exact syntax for importing it. Okay, and now we'll start creating our classes. So we'll say class user, user mixin. So this is going to be a table for any user that's trying to log into the system. So it'll be, we can use these columns just to get started. So ID, username. Instead of password, we're going to call this password hash. We're going to go through how to hash a password later. String, I'm just going to make it 1,000 because I know the hash strings get pretty long, but probably not that long. And then a timestamp. So like created that update. Probably just created that. And this should be it. This is just used for debugging purposes, and we'll get to that later. Okay, so now I think we're good. Okay, so now if I go to my app.py file, I'm going to modify this import statement a little bit. I'll say from project because that's the new folder that we created that houses this init.py, which holds this create app function. So we'll say from project import create app, and that should be it. And then we're going to change this to init equal or app equals create app. And then these roots. Oh, I almost forgot. Okay, so now instead of having the roots here, we can move them to a separate file. Let's try it. Let's just try it right now and see what we got. So hopefully it should still work. So, oops, getting in here down here. Okay, SQLAlchemy. Database URI is not set. Okay, so let's go back to our init.py file. I don't have it. URI. Aha. Okay, I understand now. So I need to set the URI. So just because we have this information set, we actually need to set this SQLAlchemy database URI. The beautiful thing about GitHub Copilot is that I can just take this recommendation and I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to put it right here. Boop. And what it says is, I'll make this window a little bit longer. Okay, so the URI is just URL for the database. This is just the syntax of it that you need. We've already defined the user, the password, the host, and the database name. So this URL should work fine. So now when I save it, let's go back down here and run it. Python app.py. Now when we run, we get another error. Locals. Okay. Root. I've made a couple changes. In my .m file, I just added all the database credentials in there. So host, user, password, and the database name all in the .m file. I updated the init.py file to include, let's see. So now I updated these lines so that all the configuration variables are being, they're looking at the .m file to for whatever variable that you want to set it to. So host is going to host, user is looking for the username, and so on. And then for the SQLAlchemy database URI, I just updated the URI so that it's, again, going directly to the environment variable file and fetching that string. But I was still getting this error where it's saying that the MySQL user is none. And I remember that I need to import this load.env so that it makes the environment variables available to your application. So up here in the import statements, we would say .env from .env import load.env. And then right below where we did declare this app, we would say just initialize this load.env. And I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that this magically works. And it does. Okay, cool. So now we're working. The app's running. If I go here. It should be fine, and looks good to me. If I go to the other endpoint, it should say hello world, which is good. So we are connected to the database, but we haven't actually done anything to the view functions yet. So we have this database table. We've run the app. In init.py, we have this we've imported the user table, which is this. Actually, you know what? Instead of flipping back and forth, I'm just going to split it. Okay, so we've got our model over here. Init.py imported this table, created that table. So if I go back to MySQL Workbench and open up that database, so here's our connection, here's the database. I go to the table view, you'll see it. There it is. There's our table that we just created. Now it's empty. So if I click this little table with a lightning bolt, I'll click that, it's empty, but you see all the columns: ID, username, email, password hash, created that. So that is all, that was all created because of this line of code right here. And all right, so now we've connected to the database. Let's try adding some records in here. Well, let's create the form first, and then have that form insert records into this table. So we'll go back to our templates folder. For now, I'm just going to create a template called let's just call it base.html. Actually, you know what? I don't want to call it base. People like to use the word base. I don't like. I prefer layout, because layout gives it a better sense of what it is. Like, so we're going to have this layout template, and we're also going to have a I'm just going to call it home. No, I'm going to call it index.html. Okay, so we're going to create a layout. That's going to be like our template, and then we're going to use it within the index.html. So we're pretty much going to take the content within index.html, and we're going to put it within this layout that we create. So initially, we're just going to keep it super simple. So for the layout, if you just start typing HTML, you can get your boilerplate going right here. And in the body, we can put you can put a nav bar. And this is probably a little overkill for what we're trying to do, but yeah, home, about, contacts, like these will be links that we can go to within our application, and we'll need to create endpoints for them. So let's just do that really quickly. So instead of hello, let's make this about, and this one, let's say contact, and we'll just say message contact. And then over here, let's just say message is about, just so that we can see that these are working. And I forgot to update these function names. So let's just call this one about, call this one contact. Run it again. Okay, cool. So now if I go to hello, oops, go back. Hello throws an error. About gives me that. Contact gives me that. Cool. Okay, now is there maybe a footer? Okay, we'll have a main block. So the way that Ginger works, and again, you may or may not know this, but I was say 2020, 24. So this block content end block statement right here, this is where all the stuff that's in index.html is going to appear. So the layout HTML is going to be, the stuff that's on top and on bottom, and then index.html is just going to be inserted into the middle of this template here. So I can save this, and then if I go over to index.html, it's going to start off by saying extends. Extends base.html. Not base, layout.html. And again, when you use the block content and block, this will be the text, the HTML that's inserted into layout. So, okay, let's see how it looks. Let's see if this is actually working. So if I refresh most of my content, if I go to the root, okay. So our view function defines how when someone goes to that URL, what do they see? So right now they're just getting returned this message. What we want to do is return this template. So but we actually want to render it. So we're going to return, then we're going to use the tool render template. And when we say, we're going to say index.html, but it's not happy because it hasn't been imported. So we go up to Flask and say redirect URL for render template. We're not using the redirect or URL for yet, but we will at some point. So I'm just going to put them right there for now. And in theory, this should be good. So I saved it, and I'm going to refresh. Okay, here we go. So we've got our nav bar, home, about, contact. This is our footer. And then we have project, welcome to the project. That's our indexed HTML part. And then this nav bar up top is the layout.html as well as this footer, this copyright 2024. So now we're going to, down below this welcome to the project, we're going to put a form here. And I like to just type this out, like what I'm going to do in paragraph form, so that I can look at the layout again and be like, okay, this is what the plan's going to be. We're going to put a form here. We're going to include a username, email, and password. Put a form here. Form should take in. I'm going to go back to my database table so that I see. Oh, actually, it's just going to be right here. Should take in username, email, password. That's it. That's really all. Okay. And then when the user hits, when the user clicks submit, send a post request to the backend, which will save the user to the database. Perfect. Okay, cool. See how that looks. So that's what we're going to do when we refresh. Here's where the form's going to be. Okay, cool. Okay, I think that's all we're going to do for now. So far, just as a recap, we've created a MySQL connection, created a database. So the connection is really the server, like setting up the server that's going to be hosting the database for you. And the database that we've called My New Database or My New DB was also created with MySQL Workbench. We've created a Flask application, created some templates, that created the directory, and successfully connected from our Flask application to our MySQL Workbench database. We've successfully connected from Flask to our MySQL database. And in the next video, or whenever we continue this, we'll finish up this form and be able to make a post request and actually insert records into the database. Cool. And thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. And if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to include in the next video, feel free to let me know. Thanks. Bye.